What if I told you the most advanced piece of tech wasn't a machine at all? Today, we're diving into the story of a tiny hero in, well, the most unlikely place imaginable. You're about to see how a simple, living, breathing solution proved to be way more reliable than $500,000 of cutting-edge engineering.
So, let's play a little game. When you picture life on a space station, what's the first thing that pops into your head? Gleaming computers, giant robotic arms, super complex life support systems? And yeah, you're right, all that stuff is absolutely vital. But what if the most important piece of equipment was something you would never, ever guess? Just look at this. It really says it all, doesn't it? On one side, you've got the absolute peak of human engineering, this complex, sterile, totally controlled environment. And on the other, just the beautiful simplicity of nature. Our story today, it happens right where these two worlds collide, and it all starts with one guy who decided to, let's say, bend the rules. A lot.
Okay, so picture this. We're on a space station, hurtling around the Earth. It's an absolute marvel of technology. Every single gram of weight, every single cubic centimeter of air is accounted for, meticulously calculated and planned. Or, well, almost everything. So the guy at the center of all this is Sven. The source material calls him a wiry little fellow, and he's basically one of the best construction guys up there. A total pro, an absolute expert in his field. But he's got a secret, and he's breaking a really, really big rule. And here it is, the secret. Sven had a pet, a little tiny yellow canary, and her name was Claribel. Now, you have to understand, keeping an unsanctioned animal on a space station was completely unheard of. It was totally illegal. A living, breathing variable in a world that was supposed to be about absolute control. So why was one tiny bird such a huge deal? Well, you've got to really get what this environment is like. You're in a sealed metal can, flying through the vacuum of space. The air you breathe is literally the most critical system there is. It has to be constantly cleaned, purified, and replenished. Life in zero-G is just a whole different ballgame. See, the station, and everybody inside it, is constantly falling around the Earth. That's what free fall really is. And it's what creates that amazing feeling of weightlessness, where there's no real up or down. A place where a tiny little bird could just happily float and flit around in any direction she wanted. And this kind of environment, this is where Sven was a master. I love how the source material puts it. It calls his work a slow-motion, three-dimensional ballet. Just imagine that, guiding these massive steel beams into place as they just float there. It's an unbelievably precise and difficult job. So, for a while, everything was fine. Life with their secret feathered roommate just went on. But then, one morning, and yeah, they still called it morning even though the sun was basically always shining, everything changed. The normal, cheerful routine was shattered by this really strange, heavy silence. The crew starts to wake up, and something's just not right. You know that feeling? The story says they felt sluggish, they had these nagging headaches, and weird fuzzy memories of bad dreams. They're just groggy, slow, can't quite shake it off. It's that kind of subtle off feeling that's really easy to just brush aside at first. But then there was something that was not subtle at all. The silence. See, Claribel, she was the station's unofficial alarm clock. Her singing would wake everyone up. And this morning, nothing. She was gone. Sven, of course, starts searching frantically, and he finds her. Just this tiny, still little bundle of yellow feathers. And the whole crew, who, let's be honest, had all secretly fallen in love with this little bird, they were just devastated. It looked like their little secret, their little bit of joy, had just come to a really tragic end. So the station medic checks her out, can't find a heartbeat. But then, on a total whim, somebody has an idea: the emergency oxygen. They stick her little beak in a face mask, and, you won't believe it, she comes back. She even chirps a little. But then, the second they take the mask away, she just faints again. What on earth is going on? This bizarre cycle, back to life with oxygen, out cold without it, that was the key. As the whole crew is standing there totally baffled, something starts nagging at the narrator's memory. A little thread of an idea. And then, bam, it hits him. The light bulb goes on. And this is it.
this is the moment. He just shouts it out, "Miners! Miners used to carry canaries down into the mines to warn them of gas." It all clicked. See, canaries are way, way more sensitive to bad air and lack of oxygen than people are. If the birds stopped singing, the miners knew the air was turning toxic, and they had to get out of there fast.
And that realization just changes everything. Suddenly, it's crystal clear. On one side, you have this $500,000 super high-tech life support system. It's got electronic alarms, backup circuits, the whole shebang. All that fancy engineering. Versus one little bird. And guess what? Only one of them was actually doing its job.
So what exactly happened to the fancy tech? It was basically a perfect storm of tiny little failures. First, a really rare eclipse happens, and it causes a part in the air purifier to freeze up. Okay, that shouldn't have been a disaster on its own, but then the main alarm that was supposed to catch that, it failed too. And the final backup, the last line of defense, turns out it hadn't even been connected yet. Just a series of small, simple mistakes that almost became a total catastrophe. So there you have it, the $500,000 system, a complete and total failure. But the tiny, illegal canary, she didn't fail. In that single moment, she became the most important piece of safety equipment in outer space.
And let's be really clear about the stakes here. They couldn't have been higher. I love the dark humor the source uses. It says that without Claribel fainting, the crew wouldn't have just woken up with worse headaches. No, they would have quietly slipped into a coma from lack of oxygen and never woken up. They were, in its words, on their way to being slightly dead. Just let that sink in for a second. $500,000. That's the price tag on the fancy engineering that let them all down. And Claribel, a bird that probably cost, what, a few bucks? She gave them a warning that was, quite literally, priceless. And the craziest part? Claribel's legacy is real. Her little close call actually changed safety protocols on space stations for good. So now, if you ever visit a space station and hear birdsong, don't be surprised. It's not just a nice sound, it's your biological backup system, letting you know it's online. It means you're being doubly safeguarded. So what's the big takeaway here? I think it's pretty clear. For all our amazing, complex technology, we can't forget about the simple, elegant solutions that nature figured out millions of years ago. It's all about redundancy, right? The smartest designs often mix the brand new with the tried and true. And it kind of leaves you wondering, doesn't it? In our huge rush to engineer the future, what other simple, natural answers are we completely overlooking right now?